So welcome everybody. Really appreciate and everyone turning up today. I know it's holiday season. If you're like me and going on holiday tomorrow, then this is the perfect time to have this meeting because it means I can get everything off my chest, update you all, have a very great meeting, and then sail off into the into the wet Scottish countryside. So it's maybe not going to be that exciting, but I'm delighted to see you all. This is the Global Ambassador Meeting for the Sustainable Procurement Pledge. What on earth does that mean, I hear you say? So if you don't know who the Sustainable Procurement Pledge are, we're going to give you a bit of an introduction briefly. If you have been to many meetings over the years, then great to have you with us. It is a meeting so everyone can talk. If you wouldn't mind going on mute, that would be great. You will have plenty of opportunity to chip in later. We have quite large audiences for these meetings, but we do like to encourage as many people to take part as possible. So we usually have a global ambassador meeting every quarter. We haven't had one for a number of months because, of course, we had World Sustainable Procurement Day, which I'm sure you were all at back in March. So this is the first proper one we've had for a long time, but a very exciting one indeed. So a little bit of housekeeping. We do need to cover antitrust. I think the main thing we need to be worried about here is people revealing that they want a new job and perhaps to their bosses. So be aware of what you're saying and be aware of what you put in the chat. I mean, obviously today's meeting really is about the career pathway of sustainable procurement. So be very conscious if you're enthusiastically saying that you're looking for a new job and you've got all your colleagues with you. Just be aware of that. But ultimately, we're not going to cover anything that's anti-competitive or antitrust. So, but just do be aware of what you're saying. And obviously, just to respect everyone in the meeting. We don't like running webinars. We encourage everyone to be able to have a voice, but it does carry a bit of risk in terms of sound and participation and people being able to participate. So behave yourselves and put yourselves on mute, but do be ready to come off mute and take part. Use the chat. So if you want to post questions, you want to post ideas, if you're looking to hire someone, why not use the chat? Let's turn this into a massive jobs fair. There's no reason why we couldn't. So if you want to put things like that in the chat, you're very welcome. I'm sure that many of you are here especially for the reason that you're looking to evolve your career and put more sustainability into your procurement role. So hopefully, as I said, that's why you're here. So we like to start the meeting with a bit of an update. There's plenty of exciting stuff happening in the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, so you'll get a bit of an update from Charlotte and Melissa when she joins us a bit later. Will be able to update us as well. But do let us know any questions you've got. Throughout about the SPP. We'll try and answer them in the chat, but we'll cover a bit of an SPP update, give you some exciting news, and then we'll get into the crux of it. We'll get into listening to some of our ambassadors about their journey, and you'll be able to pose your questions to them. So I should probably, before we start, Charlotte, explain what the SPP is, because I should imagine there are people in the room who don't know what the Sustainable Procurement Pledge is. So the Sustainable Procurement Pledge is a non-profit that is tasked with trying to just make it easy for procurement to do sustainability, to embed it into the ways that they work in procurement language. It's for procurement by procurement. So it's everything we do is created by procurement professionals, written for procurement professionals, and hopefully consumed by or for procurement professionals. We want to try and get 1 million procurement professionals by 2030 to completely run out of excuses as to why they can't embed sustainability into their ways of working, and ultimately evidence to us that they have. So that's our mission. Now, in order to do that, we need to usually overcome 4 barriers. Procurement doesn't understand sustainability. I often say sustainability doesn't understand sustainability, so let alone procurement. So we're trying to make it easy for procurement to understand. So translating all of this content on scope 3, on nature, on anything, on legislation into procurement language or easy, fee for free is really what it's all about. Then it's about tools and templates. We want to crowdsource all of the tools and templates anywhere and make sure that every procurement professional in the world can find it in one place for free. We also then need to help you understand who to collaborate with. And this is where you can join meetings with either your local people in the same country, your industry colleagues in the same industry or category, and also finally, those that are tackling the same challenges like scope 3 and human rights. So you can choose your own adventure in the SPP to make sure you filter down exactly what you need and meet the peers that you need to meet. Now, the final hurdle often is that your bosses won't let you do it. So even if you know what to do and how to do it and who to do it with, sometimes pesky leadership, executive leadership, as well as perhaps procurement leadership, are always asking you to be solely focused on cost in occasions. So we want to try and overcome that and try to help procurement leadership manage upwards, and for executive leadership to give procurement the respect it darn well deserves. So that's really what that's about. So that's what we try and do. We've been doing it for several years now. I know many of you have been along the journey, but it's been great fun. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a taster as to what we're all about. Charlotte, over to you.
Right, I'm actually first, hello everybody, going to ask if Melissa is in fact in the room, because I think I saw your name. So if you would like to come and say hello and give us the updates, please do. I'll pause.
Hi, everybody. I'm not sure if I have great connection, Charlotte, because I am in a taxi as I'm doing this, but happy to add. And if I disconnect, Charlotte, you can continue. I'm going to start with the very, very good news that we have a new website coming your way with a lot more features for all of you. As we were just starting this meeting, we actually pressed the big red button to go live on the new website. There's going to be a whole section for chapters, so you can figure out who your co-chairs are, what you're going to be doing in there, how to get involved. There's going to be a lot more news. So wait a little 24 hours, and then I really, really suggest that you go check it out. There'll be more visibility for our wonderful champions program, our CPOs, the transformation panel, and a lot of work has gone into this. I would like to send out a big special thank you to Miguel Casio, who used to be our co-chair of the Denmark chapter, who's been working on this with us. So very good news and a big upgrade for all of us as we're getting into a busy period. So maybe you could just switch aside. The other really big, exciting update is that SPP is growing up. So Oliver was saying that we've been there here a few years. We're actually just about to start planning to celebrate our 5-year anniversary as an organization. And as part of that growing up, we are launching our advisory council. This is going to be a group of 8 individuals who are working with us on some strategic areas. And we have the first 2 members who have joined us. Incredible, incredible people who've been part of the SPP family for quite some time already. So Nancy Gillis, who's working with us on all things content, making sure we are anticipating the trends and the topics. And then Rana Joy Basu, who I'm actually on my way to go meet right now, who is helping with us on governance and all the legal background stuff that we do to keep the SPP strong and growing to be fit for purpose.
Excellent.
There'll be more updates on that. Charlotte, do you want to do the chapter updates? Because there's been a lot happening with the chapters.
Yeah, with absolute pleasure. So hopefully you'll start noticing, and I'll pop the links to our LinkedIn groups if for those of you who are new and haven't signed up yet. Hopefully you will have been noticing that there's a lot more going on with our wonderful chapters, because our chapters are growing, and I know a lot of our co-chairs will be here in the room. I've already seen some faces. And there are more and more of these learning and networking events happening. So a huge, huge thank you to all of our co-chairs across the world. We have a lot of new chapters now. We've had the India chapter just launched very recently. We've had the Canada chapter at launch. We've got Australia coming very soon. We've got human rights. We've got nature and biodiversity, and that's naming just some of them. There's more coming. Over the last 2 months, we've had 12 different events, which has been incredible. You can find them all on our YouTube channel. And I would really highly recommend that you subscribe. That way you'll get updates for any meetings that you may have missed in person live. They get put up on our playlists, and you can find out about them there. And finally, with the events, and this is why the website is mentioned here as well, we will have, when you go on the website, as Melissa said, it will take a couple of, or it will take some hours. So as of, in a few, let's say tomorrow, I don't want to promise, hopefully everybody around the world will be able to see it, but apologies if you're not seeing it yet. We will on there have an events calendar, which is going to make your life much, much easier in being able to find all of the events coming. So we have things will quieten down a little bit in the summer, but we do have some great events in the pipeline. Our supplier diversity and a USA chapter are doing a really nice combined event in August. So yes, lots going on with the chapters. A huge thank you to our co-chairs, and get involved. This is the place for you, all of you, the 167 of you now in the room, where you can really find your community, bring your questions, get the answers, and help actually shape what SPP is all about. It's community led. So yeah, get involved.
And to that point, Charlotte, just to add a little thing, that those videos, sometimes you can't join those events live, but we have over 150 videos from the World Sustainable Procurement Day, from the chapter events that are happening from these events. There is a lot of really good content that we're collecting over the years that doesn't go bad. So if you've missed it, if you're just joining us for the first time, or you need to go and refresh on any of that, it's going to be a lot more findable on the website, but also our YouTube channel is a wonderful place for you to be doing some of that. The guide, you've heard about the guide quite a bit. I am really happy to let you know that there is a new case in the guide. So take a minute, go read it again, refresh yourself on the old cases. If you don't know what the guide is, it is one of the wonderful products that the SPP launched with our Champions program last year. It is talking about all the good, the bad, the ugly, the cases, the stuff that works, the stuff that doesn't. And it is open for you to also add some content in there. So if you're doing something amazing that you want to share with this community, please also go follow that link. It is really simple for you to add to that. Charlotte, can I pass it on to you for a minute?
Absolutely. Yeah. Also, as well, and I'll pop this in the link just on the guide before we move on to the next agenda point. This is open for any case studies that you as a community also want to add. So as Melissa said, when you're going through and getting inspiration and learning about case studies that are already there, if you think, you know what, this is missing, you are very, very welcome to submit your own case study. And you can do that as well via a link on the website when you go under Discover and the guide.
And just to add to that, the overall aim ultimately is just to make it super easy for procurement to find all of the best practice case studies and all of the best practice tools and templates wherever they exist. So the idea is the SPP will become a hub of content wherever it lives, anywhere in the world, so that you've got one place you can be sure to ultimately come to get all of that knowledge. Case studies. The case studies will be very raw and honest, as honest as we can be. So we'll hear about the things that failed, the ugly truths, as well as the success stories. You know, we don't like to muck about as procurement professionals. We like to get the reality. So you'll get a lot of that. But as well as the guide, we ultimately will soon be building the toolkit, because there's no point having a guide, loads of inspiration, if you don't have a toolkit to actually make it happen. And procurement likes to get stuff done. So toolkit is starting to be developed alongside the guide, where tools and templates will be married up with the content and case studies. One day this will all be in an AI website, I'm sure, one day, where we can just click a button and it'll all be given to us exactly how we need it in our category strategies or something. But there'll be a bit of time before we get there, I'm sure. But that's it.
That'll be the
that's
next
the sort of
website,
direction.
Oliver.
Yeah, the next one, very much the next one.
Website 2.0 will have all that AI technology in there. We really don't want this guide or this toolkit to feel out of reach to you. It's going to grow thanks to you. So please, please, please consider, we've made it as easy as we can for you to also add content on our YouTube channel. There are a couple of videos that same guide and more. Please do take a minute to use it with your teams as well.
Cool. Right, on to another project. So this is a very, very exciting project that's been running since the start of the year. Here's an example of the sort of thing that will come into the toolkit. Here's also an example of the sort of thing that when we get our champions together, more on who they are in a second, what we can do to get chief procurement officers and heads of sustainable procurement together to get something done. So for the last, 6 months or so, we've had over 150 people in procurement and sustainability working together almost monthly, both in person and virtually, to come up with a methodology for adding carbon pricing into tenders. an epic undertaking. If we can crack this, if we can get a set of principles, a methodology, and some best practice together for all procurement professionals in the world to support and get behind in whatever format it eventually becomes, it will mean that procurement is playing a critical role in driving decarbonisation in supply chains, including really incentivizing and inspiring suppliers to actually create a competitive advantage by providing emissions data and decarbonising. So very, very exciting indeed. The image that you can see there is literally the 2-page methodology with people adding post-it notes and content and everything else. If you're interested in participating, you need to be serious about it. You need to be up for it. You need to be willing to embed it in your own business. You need to be collaborative. You need to want to give as well as take. If you'd like to come to those meetings, you'd be very, very welcome if you fit that criteria. If you message me, championlead@spp.earth, then I can review it and we can see if we can invite you along to those meetings. But we have plenty of people involved. The more, the merrier to get involved. If you've got examples of carbon pricing being used in your business, if you've got experience of any of that, then we really want to hear from you as well. Ultimately, this is exactly the sort of thing that will get into our toolkit. So a reminder of the Champions programs. This is what I lead at the SPP. So in order to continue as an organisation, whilst we raise more money from those non-profits and NGOs ultimately around the world, we've been kindly supported and this growing, fast-growing team by chief procurement officers all over the world. So these are the organisations that have donated and supported the SPP. Their CPOs and their heads of sustainable procurement are very proactive in terms of helping design the guide, toolkit, and helping to get stuff done that ultimately that content and knowledge will be made available for everyone in the world for free. So huge thanks to all of those. We're adding new ones all of the time. We're looking for even greater diversity in there. If you are interested in getting your organisation to join and perhaps donate, then feel free to get in touch with me as well. Charlotte, back to you.
All right, so this is where it starts getting really, really exciting for me. We've got a couple of polls, and those of you who were joined at the top of the meeting would know we're doing this for the first time. So Climate Week. Perhaps some of you haven't heard of Climate Week. There's an awful lot of things happening all over the world, but Climate Week is a really, really essential coming together of businesses, global leaders, key opinion leaders as well, and groups that are saying, right, climate change, it's real, it's happening. We need to tackle it as individuals, as groups, as countries, as companies. And we're very, very excited to announce that we will be there this year. It happens in September. We will be doing a joint event with the fabulous World Economic Forum. Help me out with the name, Ollie.
First Movers Coalition.
First Movers Coalition. And
First Movers Coalition. Yeah, the First Movers.
Yep, there we got it.
And so we will be there, and we are running a couple of different events. In those events, we have invited leaders from the community, so CPOs and other members of leadership teams, to come together who are part of our Champions program and really talk about these key issues that we need to be looking at together, and how we as SPP and a facilitation group in that sense can really keep things moving forward. What's super important for this group of people here is we want to be the voice of you, wherever you are sitting in your companies, in supply chains, playing a role in procurement. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to run a poll and ask for a couple of questions to you. And whilst I get set up, I would welcome Melissa to just jump in if you want to add anything else in there as well.
I can do that. And this is part of us learning teams and being able to be more interactive with large groups. So thanks for running that, Charlotte. So yeah, I think going back to talking about the Champions program and some of what we're trying to do as an organization, we're trying to make sure that we create opportunities for you to be at the table where the conversations are happening. So this event in New York, where we're going to be co-hosting an incredible day for our CPO leaders and other leaders in your companies to come together and discuss the critical topics that are at the table at the moment. We want to make sure that we are bringing to them and to our champions program your voice as well. So the poll that you're going to see is, we want to hear what is happening in your life, what absolutely should be discussed, what challenges are you facing, and we're going to come back to you over the next few months as we're getting ready to be at Climate Week as an organization, to get your feedback, to get your experience, to get your voice, because we really need to be hearing from you what is important. And then coming out of Climate Week also, then being able to bring that back to you is something that we really are excited to be able to do. Oliver, anything else for Climate Week?
No, I think that's it. I think, guys, let us know either in the poll once we get it up or the chat, what it is you really want us to make sure that the chief procurement officers and procurement leadership are talking about. How are we doing,
we're
Charlotte?
ready to, yeah, we're ready to go. We're ready to roll. What this is, and I will launch it now, is it's a word cloud. So we're actually looking for one word, and we want to know, what is it that you need from your leadership, your CPOs, your leadership teams, to accelerate sustainable procurement? Throw in one word, throw in a couple of words. Let us know your thoughts.
Don't all be paid more either, because I know this is a career session, but that's not very helpful, even though that's what we all want. But yeah,
I like it. The first three that have popped up are actually
more holiday,
but
more holiday, more pay.
And I can't hear enough how much other organizations are waking up to the fact that they have to be speaking to you, procurement, to get stuff done. So you'll be hearing that coming from us a lot more. There are wonderful goals around Climate Weeks, around the SDGs, but to really implement all of those goals and to hit the targets for 2030, we're really seeing that everybody wants to hear from you. So these word clouds are really important for us. We're going to need your feedback a lot more than just this, but it's a good place to start.
Well, one thing I would add, I mean, word clouds are great, but if you've got something specific, put it into the chat. It'd be great to see what sort of things you think we should be discussing with the procurement leadership for the coming 6 to 12 months. Thomas, I know you're on the call. Don't know if you want to say hi as the co-founder, but what are you making of this word cloud as it's?
Well, I was sitting here as being super active. I also, everybody has a boss, right? So I was also writing here, but I think we need. No, again, I really. I guess you've heard there's been a lot of updates. I hope all of you also recognize that much of this success, the fact that we can have this conversation, is because you are here, right? And you want to engage, and you want to make sure that the drive and the ambition we have to change the world and reach 1 million people is only happening because you're asking us to do it. So again, the fact that we are now not just talking to procurement people, but we are partnering with the World Economic Forum. You will hear there's a few others very cool things going on, where the world around us also looks at us and says, it's really important what you're doing, and we believe in you. I think that's just super awesome. So yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Also thanks to the people that will join a little bit later, sharing their journeys on their career. It's really fantastic that you're taking your time. I know you're all busy, so thanks for being here and being part of the conversation. And now I'll get back to write some more answers.
Budget, commitment, priority. It looks pretty good. Okay, should we close it there and move on? But I think that's been very interesting. I think it's not a surprise in there, but really good to see.
Yeah, brilliant. And thank you so much. We've had over 100 responses, I see. So that's super cool for us to be able to take this. We do have 2 more questions, but I know time is running. So up to you. What do you think?
No, just quickly fire them up. Why not? Let's go for it.
So we're actually, with these 2 questions, and we'll do this quite briefly, asking what do we need to do more of to hit these 2030 goals, these sustainability goals, and perceive this as also the goals that are being talked about in your companies as well, if you're not familiar with exact 2030 goals and SDGs, etc., etc. But what is it that you feel needs to be happening more so that we actually move the dial quicker, get there quicker, hit our goals, our sustainability goals quicker?
It's very interesting you put this up, Charlotte. So I was reflecting on various trips to North America in the last month, talking to both procurement and sustainability. We were at you'll hear more about this in a second, we were at a Chief Sustainability Officer event with about 150 Chief Sustainability Officers talking about the Sustainable Procurement Pledge a few weeks ago. And they decided collectively to put a workshop on together, which was titled, "What are we going to do when we fail to reach our Scope 3 targets?" Which was an interesting turn of phrase and use of phrase. But just to let you know, I think generally, I think the elephant in the room over the last few weeks is that there are many companies and there are many people talking about failure and the fact that we are perhaps going to struggle to meet our targets, to hit our targets, that we need to do things differently. We need to do things perhaps in a more dramatic way, or perhaps readdress those things. There are a lot of people that feel like they need to go back to leadership and be open about the fact that they're not going to hit those targets. I want to reflect on that and say also the other feeling that's coming back is that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to miss those targets. I know that's a strange thing to say, but the realities are we need to go back, we need to be open and honest with our leadership, and we need to find new ways to be ultimately try things differently to achieve those goals. If we carry on banging our head against the brick wall and trying to do things that clearly aren't working, then we won't get anywhere. So I thought it was an important reflection that both the sustainability and the procurement world is having a very hard look at itself about those goals, about those challenges, not stopping, not slowing down, but just having a very honest conversation about doing things differently. And I think that's very important.
Brilliant. So we've got the last section here running, and I can see you've all jumped on it straight away. So this is the same question, but what do we want to be doing less of? And I love the fact that the two first things that popped up were related to greenwashing. I couldn't agree more. It's, I think, one of the biggest frustrations that I see working in the field of sustainability. We're not doing ourselves any favors. So, but yeah, brilliant. So do
also green hushing as well. So the problem with greenwashing is it encourages green hushing as well. So people are doing wonderful stuff, but don't feel like they want to share it. And that's dangerous, particularly for initiatives like ourselves. So yeah, we need to get that right for two reasons.
So thank you ever so much. I think if I've understood the technology correctly, you might still be seeing these in your sidebar and add in your thoughts and as we go. But no worries if that's not the case. This has been great to capture your thoughts. Please have your eyes peeled for conversations that are happening on LinkedIn, in SPP newsletters in the next few months, because we will be asking for more feedback and input about what do you think we need to be talking about? What are these big topics? So do definitely, pay attention to that and just reach out to us as well. If you've got any burning thoughts and ideas, our email addresses are on the website. Let us know. And one last point on the newsletter, I'll just use this as a very quick plug. We, as you may well know, have been going through a transition away from what was originally our newsletter list onto a much more professional contact community relationship management basis. So on our website, you have a join us button. In there, that is where in future we will be sending out the emails from. So if you've not registered there and you stop receiving emails, let this just be a little bit of a nudge to go there and make sure you sign up again. Unfortunately, we do have to ask you to sign up again because it's just GDPR, data privacy protection. But we don't want to lose contact. So stay in touch and sign up for those newsletters. Okay. Back to you, Ollie.
Okay, one final very important update. The SPP is award winning. Yes, after 4 or 5 years of toil by wonderful volunteers, we have been recognised by the world's chief sustainability officers as probably one of the most impressive collaborations out there. So myself and Melissa, if you squint, you can see us in the middle of that picture, went to Vermont and were overwhelmed by the love that chief sustainability officers and the sustainability leadership community in total found for us. And they are so excited that a profession is helping itself. You know, they're obviously been championing and cheerleading, but they know, as all good comms is, it's a reality. If you can speak your language, and that's really yourselves speaking to yourselves, we can get stuff understood and acted on much better. So we were delighted to receive that. And there's a little globe for Thomas, and there's a little globe for Bertrand there. So I'm not sure which one you've got, Thomas. Have you decided which one?
I
Are
got
you
the
the
blue
Earth
one.
or the?
I got the blue one with the ocean.
Oh, that's because you
Bertrand
like
got the green one with the forest.
sailing across it as you do. Yes,
There you
okay. Well, lovely. So huge thanks to everyone. And can I just also say just a wonderful thanks to Melissa, Catherine, Charlotte. You know, we have been a volunteer organisation for years, but those three guys have in the last year or so just transformed our organisation into a much more professional organisation that can now actually win awards rather than just shout a lot. So huge thanks for that. After 20 years of handing out awards, it was nice to finally receive one. So that was a nice moment as well. But well done.
But this is everybody's award. I think that is, I'm a humble steward of this blue one, but it's everybody in this community who really absolutely deserves it.
Yeah.
If I can just add something to that, this really is an award for all of you. This is professionals who have been working on sustainability for the last few decades, really recognizing the power and the role that this community can and absolutely has to have. There are two globes there, but there were two categories in the awards. One was for an organization and one was for individuals. So Thomas and Bertrand, congratulations for this idea. But then all of the work and all of the power of this community coming behind it is really where the recognition is there. The message was clear. They want to be doing more with all of you. So we have to see this as a beginning and as a welcome to collaborate with those who have been working on sustainability for decades and join forces on that. So really congratulations to everybody. Thank you for being part of the community, for joining as ambassadors, for signing up for the newsletter, for coming to these events, for speaking. It really is the power of procurement coming together.
Indeed. And the very next day after that award ceremony, once I'd recovered from the few drinks that I'd had, the entire Chief Sustainability Officer group decided to have a workshop that was called Procurement is Sexy. And so you'll all be delighted to know that we took that award and put it into action. And we had a wonderful workshop to think about how sustainability leaders and procurement leaders could work together to make sustainability sexy, make procurement sexy, make everyone sexy. It was a very sexy session. So that was great. And it's just really encouraging to see that there's so much support in that. Right, let's get on with the meat of it. So we all know why you're here. You're here not only because you love the SPP, but you're here because you're passionate about what you do as well. If you wouldn't mind going on mute, that's fine. I know you're agreeing with me about how wonderful it is. But so we have an amazing group of speakers here today. So the aim of today really was to really think about your role, your function, your career, you as a person, you as an individual. The SPP is made up of mainly people who are in procurement, who are frustrated or excited about not doing or wanting to do more on sustainability. So this is really what this is all about. I'm going to introduce the speakers in a second. I in fact asked them to introduce themselves, but this came out of a conversation with quite a few people who were saying, what does it look like to hire the ideal sustainable procurement lead? What does it look like to become the ideal sustainable procurement lead? So we've got a poll that we're just going to run before we start this panel, because it's always nice to know who's in the room. So I'm going to ask you to put yourself into one of three buckets. I think you probably fit into one of these three buckets. So let us know who you are. Are you here looking to hire a sustainable procurement role? Are you looking to move into a sustainable procurement role or put sustainability more into your role? Or are you in sustainable procurement and wanted to grow your skill set? So you're probably one of those three things. I'd love to know what the balance is. I reckon there'll be a few people here looking to hire sustainable procurement people. I think there'll be a lot of people looking to put sustainability more into their role or move into a sustainable procurement role. And I think there'll be some slightly more than those that are hiring that are looking to grow your own skill set. Let's see if I'm right. I better vote myself. There we go. Wonderful. Are we seeing the results, or is it just me? Is everyone seeing it? I think you see it when you vote, it seems. That seems to be the case.
That's it. If you vote,
you
get to see that.
So I'm surprised. So I think we have a room full of people who are perhaps see it as wanting to expand their own capabilities. Maybe, yeah, that's a better way of putting it. So excellent. Well, you've come to the right place. There's 5% room looking to hire. So if anyone wants to post a job posting in the chat, you can. You're in the right place. I'm sure there's people here who would be wonderful additions to your team as well. So don't be shy if you're looking to do that. And 21% of looking to move into Sustainable Procurement. So hopefully, again, you'll get a bit of advice from our panel today. Okay, so let's introduce them. So first of all, we have Rachel from Egon Zehnder. Now, I'll let Rachel introduce herself in shortly, but the context of this is Rachel presented to our Chief Procurement Officers back in January about the role of procurement, and particularly procurement leadership, and the skills and attributes required to really lead on sustainability. So delighted to have Rachel here as well, sharing that insight. So she'll start us off in a second. Then we've got Elske from CPO of Europe for DP World, Dubai Ports World. So again, a new champion. Now, it's really Elske's fault that we're running this session. So Elske said to me, by the way, I've just joined the SPP and I'm looking to hire a head of sustainable procurement. Can you tell me what a good job description is, what skills, attributes? Now, for those that are in the LinkedIn group, you may have seen that discussion explode a little bit. And lots of people come in with different ideas. It turned into a bit of a crowdsource for templates for the sustainable procurement role, so which we're going to put into the toolkit ultimately as well. And I believe, if I'm right, Elske's actually gone ahead and hired that person as well, or getting close to it. So you'll hear more about her journey there. Then we've got Emma and Andrew. So Emma and Andrew are part of our Champions program. They're in our transformation panel, as we call them, and they are people who have very exciting roles. And I should imagine some of you would love to have a job like them, or maybe they will tell you it's terrible. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm sure they'll say nice things. But hopefully we can hear from Emma and Andrew about their journeys and what it took to get them to where they are, and also what we think the future of the role is. A big question is about where it sits. Does it sit as sustainability subject matter experts for procurement to use? Is it every procurement professional becomes an expert on sustainability? Does that look like? So we'll get into that conversation as well. But I think I'll hand over to Rachel to start. So Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself and kick us off?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Oliver. Really very glad to be here today. And one of the things I would very much like to say is what I witness here really is the example in the SPP of what I think modern leadership is. It's open, it's inviting, it's challenging, it's disrupting, it's self-organizing. And the fact that CSOs recognized you as an organization, taking your own sort of cohort of functional leaders forward, I think is unsurprising and very inspiring. So hats off to you. So I think it's really, really great. So Rachel Dorenzi-Chana, I work for Egon Zehnder. We're executive search and leadership advisory. I've done a little bit of crowdsourcing with some of my own colleagues about procurement and sustainability. So I thought I would share just very briefly before we get to the main event, and we can ask people who've got exciting roles really about their journeys. And one of the things that I would encourage us all to ask the real stars who are in these roles is really about their personal journeys, really about what they're like, how they're experiencing their roles, because Oliver talked about the ideal sustainable procurement lead, and I would actually challenge the word ideal, because our work, when we work with clients, is ideal and the word template. My experience is it is so individual. Every client comes to us from their own culture, from their own industry, from their own segment, and the one thing we find is we pick up a template and we say, we think you want this. And then when we're talking to them, they actually find that given their culture, their experience, where they are in the market, where their competition is, it evolves. So ideal does not exist. It's what is right for them. So let's just, when we're thinking about ourselves for a role, it's what is right for you as an individual, what is right for them, and it's about fit. So we really need to think about fit, and it makes it right for you as a client, for you as a candidate. It's about fit. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. We also need to think about competition. This is a really crowded agenda. And one of the things I was talking to Ollie about this before, the agenda, the board feels overwhelmed by the topic of sustainability, full stop. the regulation, is it AI, is it DE&I? All of these things are hitting the board. All of these things are hitting the exco. And how is everybody, how are leaders supposed to deal with this? So this is a crowded agenda, and we've got to remember that people think about this very functionally. And actually procurement, so they think about it as maybe a CSO topic or is it a reporting topic, whereas actually I think procurement want to start thinking about it in a cross-functional perspective. So there's a perceived competition, and I think procurement is one of the levers that can start broadening that horizon a little bit. And I think procurement is one of the leaders in a company who can really start driving the thinking in a different way. So I think that's a second thing, is actually, as a change agent, this is something that I think procurement leaders can bring. Having spoken to some of my colleagues anecdotally, that they would say that Europe and European companies are probably more encouraging of sustainability in a procurement role spec and bringing it as one of the topics. They would probably also say that consumer-facing customers, consumer-facing clients are more likely to bring it to the top of the agenda. And possibly companies where it's more obvious in the business model, or to innovate around the business model, it's more likely to be further up the list. Otherwise, we would see the normal range being around global mindset, transformation skills, team management, risk management, the normal ones you would see, negotiation, supplier selection. I think I would also maybe set up that when we bring sustainability in, we're also setting up some tensions. We're asking you, when you bring sustainability in, to start thinking about a broader set of stakeholders. We're asking you to collaborate in a different way. But we're also asking for super sharp negotiation, razor sharp commercial skills. So we're asking you to bring in one person, a set of things that actually may be bringing tension in yourself. So you need to be aware of this at the same time. A process continuous improvement mindset, negotiation, team management, especially in an era of increased awareness of mental health and stress. So the awareness of carrying quite, in some cases, polar opposite tensions in one person, I think you should also be aware of when you are thinking about the skill set that you're evolving as well. I would also just close my stream of consciousness with, I am very aware that executive search and clients, we should be creating a virtuous cycle. If we are not telling our clients that this is an important part of a procurement lead's role, sometimes they don't ask for it. And likewise, if our clients aren't telling us this is an important part of the role, we don't go out to the market and start looking for people with this and start creating a cohort of people who are bringing this in. So if I start, and if my colleagues start doing this, we also need the market to start doing it. So, I'm going to promise to start pushing on my side, and I hope we can start doing this as well. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. There's a great resource that you posted in the chat, which again was shared earlier this year as well. So the Power of Procurement, Tackling the Climate Challenge. So I highly recommend it. It's superb. And Rachel did a great job of taking our procurement leaders through that and helping them understand how they can evolve their thinking and their role as well. So great start, Rachel. We'll come back to you. So Elska, hello. Delighted to have you along as well. Let me find you where you are, and I can spotlight you, or let's see if I can do this. There we go. Look, I'm a Teams pro already. Look at this. A huge thanks for sparking this, Elska. You've been an amazing addition to the team already. We love it when a champion kind of lands and then immediately starts suggesting ideas and getting involved and being overexcited, which you've definitely been, but in a very good way. So huge thanks for this. So maybe introduce yourself a little bit, and then obviously tell us a little bit more about the journey you were, but also the journey your business has been on about hiring that person as well recently.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Ollie, and thanks for the SPP for having me and hosting this, and also thanks, Rachel, for your overview. I must say I adhere to a lot what you're saying, especially when you talk about being that change agent to collaborate. I think that was one of our key specs in what we were looking for when we were looking for hiring a head of sustainability for procurement on our side. But before I go into details, so I'm Elske Messemerker. I'm leading the procurement of DP World in Europe, and been with the company 2.5 years. For the people that do not know DP World is actually has been on a transition themselves as a company. So when I joined the company, it was just a ports provider, hence the initials DP. But it actually evolved and transitioned into an end-to-end logistical provider. So currently we are a company with over 100,000 employees located all over the world. And all we do is actually we ship and store goods. So our business model is all about delivering service to customers. And you can imagine that when you talk about things like sustainability, it's a huge challenge. And from a background, the company has always been very focused on scope 1 and 2, because that's part of their business model, but never actually really looked at scope 3. So when I, together with some other people in the company, kind of initiated that discussion saying, guys, great, but if we want to go for meeting our net zero, you need to look into scope 3 as well. And that's kind of how our journey actually started in January this year. And if I now look back in those 6 months and I looked back at what we already achieved, I'm quite proud, I can say. I think we did a lot. And I also can say that SPP helped us a lot with that, because indeed, I've been bombing them about all these questions about how do I measure carbon? How do I, what do I look for? Who do I partner with? Everything you can ask is, I think I asked. So I can adhere to the fact that it actually is a great place to help kind of accelerate your journey. And if I look back now, we indeed just hired our lead for sustainability in procurement. And I'm already saying that it is for us, it is located in procurement. Reason why is basically because we believe that it needs to be someone that understands procurement, that understands our supply chain, to really make sure that our procurement professionals actually can embark on that change. Because for me, it's not only about someone that understands procurement, but actually can also educate our organizations, our suppliers, and our organization on what is sustainable procurement. And I think that's also for us a big take on that. Yeah, so that's a bit by me. I can talk for ages, so
no, that's fine. I might just ask you a quick question, Elske, about the journey you've been on, obviously, to looking to hire. But what sort of people did apply for the role? What sort of things kind of shone out from you, from the people that went for it? What sort of skills? What sort of attributes? What did you learn about the sort of people that are right for you?
Well, the thing is that a lot of people that actually applied for the role that actually came from a sustainability perspective. And what I felt is that a lot of people that did not have that sustainability experience were, let's say, more afraid, or were not so inclined on applying to the role. And it is because of the network I actually got introduced to someone that was in procurement, actually was very knowledgeable about the topic, but never actually had taken on such a role. And we ended up actually choosing a candidate that did not do sustainable procurement before, but actually had a intrinsic drive of change, was not afraid to kind of challenge the status quo, kind of really was kind of the courageous person that just challenges everything you put in front of her. And did have a good know-how of procurement. And I actually, maybe it's also me, but I actually, that mindset, and for me, which is key, was really what I thought triggered it. And I also believe, and you see it here, sustainability in practice, like you can learn about all the legislation, you can learn about all the way of doings. But the actual soft skills of how do you manage that change, how do you influence, how do you actually, that courage you need, that's something I believe you can learn. And that's what I looked for in the person.
That's awesome. So there's a lesson for everyone listening in that, if you felt like you don't have enough sustainability in your CV or don't have enough sustainability skills, trust me, everyone who's got sustainability is still working it out. So if you can show passion and drive for the subject, admittedly, you've got to find an Elsker who thinks like this and is willing to work like that. But there are definitely more Elskers out there. Then it's hopefully hope for everybody in here that really wants to make that step, but is a bit nervous about doing it. So it's great to see. I mean, sustainability is still getting worked out a lot. Procurement has been done for a long time, and it, you can get to that. That experience is critical. So that's really useful. Thanks, Elsker. We'll come back to you. I'm sure there'll be questions for you as well. But huge thanks for sharing. Okay, next up we've got, and some of you will know Emma, I'm sure, but we've got Emma Howcroft of Avantor. So hi, Emma. Do you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about your story? And I'm conscious of one of the questions that's been put in the chat already is about sustainability training and certifications and courses and things like that. So I know you've been on an amazing journey. So let's hear more about where you've come from and where you are today.
Great to be here, Ollie. Hopefully it started raining, so my internet might go because I live in England and our utilities never work when there's a bit of rain. So apologies for that. So hopefully it works. But knowing that everyone wants to talk about skills, I will try and change my spiel a bit. But in short, my name's Emma Howcroft. I work at Avantor, which is a life sciences company, and I sit within our procurement team and I head up our sustainable sourcing team, in short, which is still very small but growing, which is great. So I was number one, and I'm slowly building a team, which is fab. I started out, funny enough, in property. So I did 3 years in property, and I'll come back to why that's important, in facilities management and then account management. And then when I was doing account management in property, I suddenly thought, who are the people that are always telling me what to do and demanding things from the customer side? And I found out they were procurement. I thought, brilliant, I want to be those people making the demand. So then I switched over to procurement and probably spent 15 years in indirects, mainly doing human resources and marketing, which isn't that relevant, and ended up in pharma doing a similar thing. And I think prior to that, when I got to my mid-30s, I'm in my mid-40s now, I had a sort of epiphany, which was what's going to happen to me when I die? What's going to be on my gravestone? What have I achieved as a human being in this world? And I thought beating up small suppliers isn't what I want to be recognized for. So I thought I need to do something about it. So I started reading and just trying to figure out what is the job that would allow me to do something a little bit meaningful. And I started up a charity called Hidden Talent, which helped young people get into work. So it mentored them up. So that was kind of more social element, which was just fun. Someone said you might be good at that. And then afterwards that stopped because I had too much to do in my actual day job, because procurement can be hard. And I went into a smaller company, meant more hands on deck. And then I ended up in pharma, as I said, and I started really racking my brain thinking, God, this is so miserable. I really don't want to just spend my time beating up suppliers. I want to have a positive impact. And I don't know if some of you feel that way. And so I was just voraciously reading, mainly on chemicals and plastics, which was a topic that was really close to my heart. And so for those of you that are sat here thinking, well, how do I get the skills? I think there's two ways to get into sustainable sourcing roles. You get lucky and you show passion, you show willingness and aptitude in your current day job, or you totally geek out on the subject, in short. And I kind of went down the geek out route and like try and read as much as possible, understand it. So if I read something, I can then say, right, if I had to put this into practice, what would that look like? And I'd actually play it out in my brain. And I think that's quite a good tool and skill set to have. Like, you read a boring document, 70-page tedious document, and then you say to yourself, right, if I had to put this in practice, what are the steps that I would take to do that? So that's kind of what I started training myself to do. And I think I then just sat tight in a procurement role that I hated, to be fair, and that was quite soul destroying. They had a big reorg and it was really depressing. And then because I sort of got frustrated, I thought, right, I was sat in the consumer team at this point, sat with marketing. And I went to the team and said, let's do something on sustainability. We're not hearing from the global sustainability team. Let's do something ourselves. And so we kicked off our own group, about 30 people in the team, where we all got really passionate. And we're doing really small things like minimizing printing, like changing our plastic cups. We did things locally, in short. And because of that passion and effort, with two of us leading it, the global sustainability team then said, come and second over and help us sort of reduce single-use plastics in our operations. And that's how I then transitioned over to the sustainability team on secondment for 2 years. So this is another skill set point. If you have the chance to second to somewhere that you think you might like, please do it. It's a great way to learn new skills. It's a great way to share ideas as well, because you'll bring in different ideas. So when they started trying to roll things out in the supply chain, they'll often say, Emma, how will procurement take this? And I'd be able to give them a view as to, you guys haven't engaged them, or you haven't considered the supplier aspect. So it's really good to have that cross-pollination of skills, and then to be able to take that back into the function. Back to my property days, because I started out in facilities, it's actually quite helpful to have change experience at the site. And this goes back to suppliers as well, because it's very easy in our ivory towers to say, complacency, suppliers just have to get on and do this. But if you've never actually been at a site and had to feel the impact of having to change something, you don't really understand how hard it is, what you're asking of people. So just to give you an idea, to make a simple little change, like changing from plastic cup to mug, took 3 months, lots of health and safety reports. It was utterly bonkers. And you're like, oh, this is just one change and we've got thousands to make. So like, you've got to understand how hard it is to create change on the ground. Because I think if you can like bring that up a level, that will make you more efficient in helping suppliers change themselves, because you sort of understand their pain points on the ground. And I think that's really helpful. So I was doing that. I was voraciously reading still and trying to catch up with my own sustainability colleagues, because obviously I was just on secondment from procurement. And I thought, what can I do to improve my skill set and sort of rubber stamp everything I've been reading? So I went and did a master's in sustainability leadership. Not cheap, so I will give you that. Do start saving if you want to do that. But actually what was enjoyable about it was it kind of showed me that everything I'd read made sense and I was on the right path. So I was on the reading, geeking out path, so that was helpful. But I think if I hadn't gone down that path, it's a great course to do, because it gives you brilliant exposure of all the sustainability topics and how to apply them and some of the challenges that you're going to meet. But probably the thing I most enjoyed was being in a sustainability echo chamber, where you suddenly have all these people who are passionate about sustainability all just sat there in one go trying to change the world. And I must admit, that was probably the most rewarding experience for me, was that first week of like term, should we say, where we were so excited to be with each other and like trying to solve world issues. It was great fun. And then by the end of the course, we weren't feeling that way at all. But but the nice thing is that I did my dissertation on human rights. So I started out in plastics with a bigger waste sort of focus, sort of passionately, and then realized that I hadn't done enough on social. So I took the opportunity to actually learn about human rights as part of my master's. So if anyone is going to do, let's say, schoolwork, perhaps challenge yourself to do it on a topic that you're not passionate about, to broaden your arsenal of topics, of sustainability topics. Because often people, I found when I looked at all my course mates, people that worked in circularity all did circularity. Everyone did what they already did, and I thought that's really boring. Do something completely new. So that's another good skill set sort of thought. And then because of that, I was lucky enough to go back into procurement. And in my role, it's been quite nice to be able to now mix sort of years of procurement and understanding the pain points that procurement people go through. And I don't know if people have heard, the life sciences industry is not doing the best after COVID. We had a bumpy year in COVID, unfortunately, unlike everybody else. And then things have obviously not as bumperish, shall we say, this side of it. And that's created pain points, and that creates pain points for our procurement people that are getting larger targets. And it's quite difficult to try and navigate that, really, as to how do you get people to maintain to maintain their passion about sustainability, but also sort of help them carry on not getting distracted so they can meet those important targets that are so critical to the company. So I wouldn't pretend that we've solved that yet. It's a sort of ongoing challenge that we try and work through. But that's a bit about me, Ollie.
That's awesome. Thank you. There's some really good advice in there. And I think one thing in particular that you highlighted was the need for empathy. So the ability to empathize with suppliers and put their challenges and their issues when you're sending them endless surveys and sending them, various different things and putting pressures on them and do all those, ability to empathize with suppliers. But I think the ability for procurement professionals and sustainability professionals to empathize with each other about what they're doing and other functions in the business like research and development and product development. I think the other thing that you, again, do extremely well, if I may say so, Emma, is obviously you sit in a value chain where the business is above you in the chain and below you in the chain. You're having to communicate and collaborate with them. And that's something that you do extremely well. So whether you said it or not as a skill, it's something you're very good at. So I think there's some really good stuff in there. Really appreciate it, Emma. Cool. I'm sure there'll be some questions for Emma. If anyone's got any questions, let's have them in the Q&A, please. The chat is insane. I can't read all of it. So please put them in the Q&A and we'll come to you. But thanks, Emma. That's some really good stuff there. Okay, Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Good to see you again, my friend. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your story. And again, perhaps I know you and I have debated long about where sustainability should sit and who should own it. So perhaps tell us a little bit about your story and then perhaps reflect on that a little bit as well.
Sure. I don't know if you can hear me, but I just got a message on Teams that my camera is not working. So,
all right, that's all right. You look a bit like me, but without glasses. I think it's probably just for everyone's sake. Yeah, a bit more handsome than me, maybe something like that.
Something like that.
Everyone's picturing it now. Yeah.
So I just so it's funny. I didn't realize how much Emma's story is like mine, except without the education, and I'm a lot cheaper than Emma. But like Emma, I was at a point in my career, so 20 years in procurement. I was at a point where I wanted to do something much more meaningful to me. I had built vendor management programs, strategic sourcing programs, and I wanted to do something much more meaningful. So at that point, we were changing chief procurement officers, and so I told the incoming chief procurement officer that I was looking for something else to do, and hinted that I might not be around for much longer in this role. And he said, well, actually, and this was 2.5 years ago, well, actually, we're looking for something that aligns with your values. So, could we talk about what that looks like? And in talking about it, he liked the energy that I brought. He liked my commitment to it. And so that was very helpful. I talk about this because a lot of what Emma talked about was having that passion for something and putting your hand up. And I think that was great a couple of years ago, but I'm seeing more and more competition for those kinds of roles now. And I would suspect that within a couple of years, it is going to be important to know to know much more about sustainability in a sustainable procurement role, or actually even for any procurement role. That's hopeful, but I also think it's true. As evidence of that, we hired a sustainable procurement intern at S&P this year, and we got 500 applications for one position. So now a lot of those are from sustainability and from business people. They see S&P, right? But a lot of them are committed to sustainability through procurement. So I think it's going to be incumbent on everybody on this call to help upskill themselves. And fortunately, I don't think you have to go get a master's in sustainability. Cambridge University does a condensed course. The SPP has plenty of material out there. I'm on the board of Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council, which it has largely been North American centric, but they offer a climate foundations program, which when I took that course, it included people from European companies as well. So really quickly, I guess my journey is that I came from procurement, moved into this role. It's been a great role. I do feel reborn in this role. I was just tired of arguing over the last 3 cents on the table between two giant companies. And this is much more fulfilling. I will say the other thing I did was I found Thomas Udison's number and I just kept calling him until he got on the phone with me. And
You and me both, Andrew.
Yes. But just running after people and asking for help was a big way of moving into this as well.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. I think there's definitely a commonality in yours and Emma's story, and I think pulling people on the call is, ultimately procurement is in that world where, as professionals, ultimately for many years, you've been focused on cost and negotiation, and essentially, obviously working hard with suppliers and working on suppliers, should we say? And it does feel like there's always been this desire for procurement to search for new conversations, new interesting angles, let alone just the grind of doing things a certain way forever. So it feels like there's ultimately you get to that point when you realize you can add more value to your business, create new ideas, have new lenses to look through. So it feels like it's an opportunity for procurement to take charge of its destiny and change it if you're feeling that grind, if you're feeling it's an opportunity for you to manage that opportunity. Brilliant. Well, that's a great story. So let's have some questions. I'd love to have some questions from the audience. Whilst you guys think of some questions, we're just going to run another quick poll. So Charlotte, if you wouldn't mind putting that poll up about the skills and attributes, it'd be great to see what you as a group, 130 of you, think the skills and attributes are that are important for a sustainable procurement role. So as a lead of sustainable procurement in a business, what sort of skills and attributes do you think you need to have? If you can try to be as specific as possible, that's great. I mean, I suspect resilience will probably be there in nice big letters. But lovely to see what you think. Passion, number 1. Look at that. Yeah, that's true. Great to see. Good to communicate. Yes.
Hello. Sorry, Sid and Suresh are made some comments in the chat at some point. Can I answer them?
Yeah, you can.
Not now.
Absolutely.
I mean, just at some point.
Well, you can't say that and then not answer them, Emma. So now's the perfect time. Go on then. Off you go.
All right. So Sid mentioned something about leadership, but it's hard to find it. And the one thing, obviously, my course being called Sustainability Leadership, we did was actually a large module on leadership where they went through all the different leadership styles and how to get leadership up and running, and the fact that most people focus on leadership as a character, and there are lots of ways to do it. My favorite one was purpose-driven leadership, where the purpose itself leads the people. So you're not focused on someone leading it. And so when I was doing my project in my pharma company, I tried to make the concept of what we were trying to achieve the leader, so that at different points in time, anyone can steward the purpose, but it's the purpose itself that leads the change. So you get people so animated about the change that it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, in short. And I thought that was quite a good leadership model that I think works really nicely in sustainability. And I don't know if that was your point, but I thought it was a nice comment. And then Suresh, I think, said something about influencing people, influencing leadership, especially when sort of environmental and social issues in the operations are only being focused on. So when I joined Avantor, that's exactly what we had. And so I think there's a really nice opportunity for sustainable sourcing people to actually lead on this stuff and actually take more of a leadership role and actually hold their hands up, get the knowledge and experience to actually say, actually, we can submit our own strategy. You don't have to wait from the corporate or central sustainability to tell you it. If you have enough know-how and knowledge, then you can actually take it to them, or even take it to your CEO if you're lucky enough, and say, actually, look at the change that we can drive ourselves, working in collaboration with our team. Because often it is actually the value chain, especially if you're in supply chain, especially if you're in manufacturing, that tends to have the larger impact. Although often the operational side of the business will often drive the strategy and then impact the strategy that's being required of the supply chain, without necessarily doing a full materiality assessment of the supply chain. So sometimes you're asking your suppliers to do things that are relevant to you, but not necessarily relevant to your supply chain in totality. And so sometimes coming at it from a different angle is really helpful. So to whoever's to Surash, get the knowledge and then maybe try and lead on that front, I would say.
Great advice, Emma. Great advice, Emma.
You know, can I
Of course you can.
add something to what Emma's saying? And Emma and I had kind of a respectful argument over LinkedIn, I think, a very public one. It was a chat about the skills that we should be looking for in sustainable procurement. And my point in that was that we should have more of a procurement view. And I don't know if it was more, but Emma was saying it needs the sustainability view as well. And this also gets to a discussion you and I had, Ollie, about where this sits, right? So is there a sustainable procurement role like the one that Emma and I have? Does the role sit in corporate social responsibility? Or is it embedded more in procurement and in everything everybody does in procurement? And my thinking was it's got to be in procurement because there's too much of the sustainability world saying, procurement, this is a big problem that sits with you and go solve it. And in a kind of vague way, without resourcing it as it needs to be resourced, and without really understanding the limitations of Ariba or the limit, or what procurement does. But I also think it's based on maturity. At first, it may be CSR saying, hey, you got to solve this problem. And then it's creating these roles. And then these roles, in my mind, my role is gone at some point because it is embedded into procurement and it's run as part of vendor management.
Can I also just
Yeah, go Rachel. Go on.
So if you don't mind me also just say, you're on that sort of maturity curve from compliance through to actually making it fully part of operational. Our leap is always first to structure and role definition. Yeah. And it's what we need now versus, what the world becomes. And this, even the terminology of CSR, I mean, I hope, one day we never hear the word again. It just becomes, the role disappears. So in the sense of it, where does it sit? Does it matter? And I can, from a sustainability perspective, having the problem and handing it over to procurement quite often comes from a sense of, we know there's a problem. Yes, there's no funding, but we know it needs to be solved. And we know you probably have much more clout in an organization to get it done. And it actually sounds more like a cry for help than it does anything else. People at the center of decision making. And HR are part of the problem in terms of structure is not necessarily, and role titles are not necessarily where the problem gets solved.
Yeah. Absolutely. And to that point, Rachel, what you said at the start, which I strongly believe in, there's not one solution. There's not one fit for all. And I think it really also depends on the rest of your structure of your organization. I mean, you need to have an overall coordination. If you do not have an overall sustainability coordinate through all the different departments or levels of your organization, you cannot just have one sitting in procurement. That also doesn't work. So I also think you really need to look at the industry, the structure of your organization, and how it sits. And that, for me, I think is more key than does it sit in procurement or not. For us, it worked, but that is because of X, Y, Z and why we placed it in procurement.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing that I think is coming through from the skills and attributes is obviously passion, but the word change management is critical in there. I mean, in many ways, the STEM procurement pledge is just a change management exercise to try and help procurement channel that passion and that energy to change and transform supply chains and their function, I think, in many ways. So it's great to see that in there. Charlotte, you've got your hand up. Do you want to add some thoughts?
Just a wonderful discussion. Just so everybody knows, you've all got the opportunity to take yourselves off mute and jump in with questions as well if you have them, and I'm sure you do. And just to kind of second to what you said there, Elske, I think it's really important. There isn't one size fits all, and a company needs to be quite clear as well when they're looking at and building these positions, making it clear who do these people need to be working with within the company, because it's important. I think the question of where does sustainability sit, who does it sit with, is a dangerous one, because it sits with all of us, regardless of where your position is. And it's a lot about who does procurement have to best work with to make sure that things are getting done. And one of the things that we're seeing with SPP now is we are for procurement by procurement, and we're welcoming 1 million people in. But what we're saying is realizing in lots of conversations, it's invite procurement allies in as well. So it's the sustainability managers within these companies, that they are as much part and very, very welcome here at SPP, aside from pure procurement people. So yeah, brilliant.
Okay, excellent. Sid, I think you've got your name up and you've posed a few questions. Do you want to add some thoughts?
Yes. So just a couple of months ago, I attended the CPO meeting, and they were talking about outsourced problems. So they were saying HSE, it's outsourced to procurement, outsourced compliance issues to procurement. And there is a lot of, like, when it comes to sustainability, reputation, or stuff like supply chain disruptions, it's outsourced to procurement. It is like, it is an opportunity, and it's a risk at certain time, because it's an opportunity for procurement to be involved in the sustainability of the business. But the risk also is that is procurement resourced to solve the problem? Do they have the enough capacity to deal with it? So it's a great discussion about where the resource is coming from, and I think it's the will to solve the problem.
Yeah, agreed. Great points. I mean, it is a team effort, but the problem is if there's no captain and no one really knows whose role it is, it's a challenge, isn't it? And yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think we're seeing that more and more. Thoughts, panel? Anything else to add on that? About how do we understand who plays what role?
I think what Rachel said before, she said something along the lines of the maturity curve, right? About the maturity curve. And that was kind of my point about you do need a team captain to drive this, right? The vendor management person has so many things to do already, right? I think the vendor code of conduct is the perfect example of something that doesn't work correctly in when it comes to sustainable procurement, right? We all have vendor codes of conduct. What do we do with them? And then when we're asked if we do human rights, we point to the vendor code of conduct, right? And I've heard this from, I'm not going to say his name, but one of my peers at another company who said during Sustainable Procurement Day, we should just get rid of the vendor code of conduct. I was like, yay. Right, we need to look at what the purpose is, and if the vendor management team is doing it the way they've always done it, right? Not because of anything bad, but because they've got a busy job. Then yes, you need a captain, as you said, Ollie, and then hopefully it gets embedded and we move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. We've got 10 minutes left, so we're going to have a few more questions. Audience, I'm very disappointed in the lack of questions. I'm very disappointed in you, all of you, for not asking more questions. Okay, I want to see more questions. This is not very common for an SPP meeting. I'm shocked. We should all go back to Zoom unless you start asking questions. Okay, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to threaten you with that.
Oliver, that's not it.
Or you can threaten them.
In the audience's defence, there was a really good question that came up in the chat, but obviously we've got quite an active chat going on, which is why I do use the Q&A, because we can better pinpoint your questions. But what popped up in the chat was the question about, are there any recommendations for good learning courses? Now, we've touched on a few here. Emma, you mentioned you did a master's. Andrew, you mentioned you did the Cambridge Sustainability course. Does anybody else want to throw in more options? And also thank you to the people in the chat who've thrown in some links there. So if you're listening but don't want to speak up, but you do have recommendations, pop them in the chat. But any other comments on courses?
So it looks like Emma has her hand up, but I will quickly say that that I took the SPLC, Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council's, I'm blanking on Climate Foundations.
Yeah,
Climate
right,
Foundations. And that was helpful. It does get a little into the weeds, so if you're just starting out, you may want to read a book or a magazine article first. But yeah, that was helpful.
Brilliant. Emma?
I'll sort of answer that. Yeah, I'll try and answer that question, maybe segue over to Sid and
you can
Helen.
Say whatever you like, Emma. It doesn't matter. You just say whatever you like. It doesn't matter.
I think it's probably the most driest advice anyone can give anyone, but funny enough, and no one does it because it's boring, but it's actually really helpful, is reading the various ESG regulations that come out from countries. Because often, although they're incredibly dry, they do outline what is needed from a topic area, and they do kind of explain what they expect a country or company to deliver and how to deliver it. So if you understand that, then you'll know what suppliers are expected to do, and then what sort of guidance you need to give them in order to help them achieve that. And so to Sid's point and Helen's point, so Sid said something about who should lead it. So I'll answer Helen's point and then go to Sid. So I think Helen said, what categories are the ones that you'd focus on in pharma? I think the really obvious one is chemicals, raw materials. However, interestingly, to Sid's point about who leads what, I'm coming to the slow conclusion that where you have raw materials, I don't think I or our sourcing team can lead on sustainable sourcing there, because at the end of the day, it's the people that determine the product specification that actually say, I want this palm oil to be from a certified source. So procurement can go nuts, like trying to get certified palm oil in. But if the business hasn't requested that, then you're not going to get the buy-in. So in a strange way, I'm starting to come to the conclusion that for these large categories like raw materials, it's actually better led from the business and the product specification people to be able to lead on that, with sourcing supporting, as opposed to sourcing necessarily taking leadership roles. That's an interesting one on who should take a leadership role there, but that's a conclusion I've slowly come to.
Okay.
So,
yep, go for it.
So can I?
Yeah, go for it, Sid. Yep, sorry.
So just to answer Emma, I think the answer in my mind is to have this center of excellence where the sourcing decision is made by the R&D group integrating procurement and sourcing from the very beginning. This is like the ideal world. That's where the decision making and working together would happen. I absolutely, it's 2 years down the road. It's mute question. Like who's gonna change this?
Yeah.
The other thing, I need to share my experience about, I did this sustainability climate risk certificate with Global Association of Risk Managers.
Mm-hmm.
I felt really curious about it. It was very good education on what's this story about, what's net zero means, and what is the tipping points, and I loved it. But my experience here, and not to be shared, that it was detrimental to my career. Like when I talked to my mentor saying, I want to, because I was a relatively senior in my role, I said, I want to do this. He basically he disconnected me from being a mentor for me after I finished it. And he raised it in my end of year evaluation.
Wow.
And I'm not focused. I'm doing something out of.
Well,
so
sounds.
I just want to share this.
Well, one thing that did show you is you had the wrong mentor or the wrong boss, which, I mean, that comes to the crux of it, guys. I think everyone on the call here, if your leadership doesn't support you, despite you being a good communicator, then go and get a job with Elsko or someone like that who gets it. because ultimately, as I said, the quality and the knowledge and the insight and the passion and the energy will find its way to the places that it needs to go, and the rest of those companies will suffer. I think that's ultimately something that I feel fairly comfortable saying. 4 minutes left. Okay, so very last one question to all of you, very short answers, and if I might come to you first, Elsker. So for the 21% of the audience that are listening in that are looking for a sustainable procurement role, they might be applying, they might be looking, they might be inspired now. Maybe that 21% is now 40%. I don't know, because of just this session. So if you were running that hire again, Elsker, and people were applying, what would be your advice for the people that are applying in for that role? What should they do more or less of in their pursuit of a role like that?
Well, I think the one I said at the start already, don't be scared if they ask 8 or 10 years of sustainability experience, because I honestly believe that in this marketplace, that's a utopia. So don't be scared. Have the courage to apply, show your vision, show your intrinsic motivation for it, and just go for it. Start.
Love it. I'm applying now. There you go. Yeah, excellent. Maybe I can get those free golf tickets one day from you as well if I work for DP World. Just thought I'd throw that in. Andrew, what would be your advice for someone who's out there looking to change or expand their role?
Yeah, I think start doing what you can now. You know, Emma talked a lot about reading, like you don't have to sit there and read the legislation if you're in a role where you're doing sourcing and you know you're going crazy. But start reading something, right? Like read the abstracts, do what you can, talk to your head of sustainable procurement, see if you can help out, like see if there are places to help out in your organization now.
Really good
and
advice.
show that you're doing something. Yeah.
I'd also recommend going to ChatGPT and asking it to explain legislation to a teenager. I always find that works well, because I think that's about my mental age and maturity level as well. So I always recommend, if you can't be bothered to read it all, ask ChatGPT to do it. Emma, your final advice for those listening in like you.
Well, I noticed that poor Adam had his hand up for ages, so I didn't know if we should ask Adam his question.
Apologies.
I should have said that.
I'm not very good at this. I can't see people's hands. It's terrible.
That's okay. My question was, I guess from the flip side, is that how have people got success in engaging people within procurement teams to become invested in sustainability, because I think passion drives passion, right? So if you can inspire people, pointing people to books, and not everyone's going to have the time or ability to do courses, but how has there been success to go, do you know what, guys, this is something that is as important as price, if not more important, in certain aspects?
Yeah, great question. I love the fact you've asked that question with 30 seconds to go as well. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Adam.
My hand was up for at least 2 minutes, so 90 seconds should be more than enough.
If we're on Zoom, it wouldn't have been a problem. I'd have come to you before you'd even asked the question. So, you know, there you go. Apologies, but it's a great question. Emma, just quick final thought from you, and then Rachel from you as well.
Did you want me to answer Adam's question?
If you can, that's even better.
So I have this problem, Adam, and what I do is I focus on the customer. So our customers want sustainability, and procurement professionals are often kept aside from the customer, aren't they? So I think actually helping get the customer communication and viewpoint over to procurement and making them more involved in the customer demands and requirements helps them get a bit more engaged on sustainability, because at the end of the day, that drives sales, and sales and savings go together. So that's how I sort of tried to do it, if that helps.
How ruthlessly commercial of you, Emma. That's great to hear.
Sorry.
I love it. Not just passion. Rachel, final thought from you. You're on mute.
I think ultimately we're humans talking to humans. We find the human angle.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. We're all just people who trying to get by on their job, either because we love it or hate it. And I think empathizing with the human first is a great piece of advice. What an awesome session. Thanks, everyone. Even though it was on Zoom, even though it was on Teams, I didn't mind it. So huge thanks to all of your participation. We'll be back again soon. Join your chapter. Go to the website. Do all the things that you should do. But keep on fighting a good fight, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, everyone.